in the wake of the election, Scott Morrison has expressed an idea to some of his close confidants about one possible way to deal with the Teals in future elections. He's discussed having the Liberal National brand, so the LNP that's just in Queensland, the Liberal National Party brand, as the main Conservative party Australia-wide, and instead setting up a progressive arm of the party. That would be the coalition partner, a modern progressive arm to run in those inner city seats. Joe, do you think this is a good idea?
I don't really see how it would work. I could understand how this might look good on the back of a beer coaster after a couple of beers have been consumed. But if he's suggesting that the Teals could be to the coalition what the Greens are to the Labor Party, again, I don't see how it would practically work. The only way the LNP is going to regain ground and be a competitive force, again, is by targeting traditional values voters, traditional working class voters in the outer suburban and regional seats, the sort of people who have drifted perhaps from Labor to groups like One Nation or the United Australia Party.
Well, I think that's what he's suggesting there. That is what
that's right. But
yeah.
That's right. So a lot of people have been saying that that's what the LNP has to do to survive. And I agree. I think that is what they have to do to survive. And as someone who is very sympathetic towards Labor, I think it's a real worry for the Labor Party. The question then is, how do you then win over these Teal voters who are going to vote for the party that is the most progressive on climate change, the most progressive on the social issues, that is anti-Catherine Deves, not pro-Catherine Deves, the party that is going to care about sort of, I suppose, more boutique issues like, you know, corruption, esoteric issues like, having transparency.
You know what's interesting, though, is that some of those issues that people voted on at this election campaign, if the economy is, if it is a lot tougher for people, if the economy starts to bite, then you'd wonder if people are going to vote on those same boutique, fashionable issues again, or if they'll return to voting to, and I'm talking about the blue ribbon seats that went to the Teals, they'd return to voting on the economy.
Well, it won't bite in those seats, I guess, is the point. They can afford to worry about things.
If the economy's bad, it will happen. It'll bite everywhere.
Yeah. Can I just jump in on that one, Sharri? There are two things I'd like to say on that. I think we've got a bunch of first-time MPs in these so-called Teal seats. I reckon there's a few Maxine McHughs in there. I think the assumption that that they will all hold their seats at the next election, and B, survive a first term in federal parliament when none of them have got a clue what they're in for, and they're also heading for irrelevance in terms of the structure of the lower house. So there's that. The second thing is that, to your point, I don't know that some of those issues will have the same polish. It's amazing how quickly we've got an energy crisis, isn't it? It's amazing how quickly this energy crisis has hit. Sorry, there were three things I fibbed. But the final thing is about Scott Morrison's idea. I think, Sharri, that speaks to one of the fundamental problems that the coalition has had is standing for nothing. That's a cosmetic approach to a fundamentally structural issue. That the coalition doesn't have a branding problem. The coalition, and I say this as a coalition voter and a Conservative, the coalition has an identity crisis, as does the Labor Party. We're talking about the coalition right now. They have an identity crisis, and rebranding it is not, and putting another branch of the party is not going to be any kind of substitute for finding something to stand for and standing for it. Voters are attracted to candidates who clearly articulate their purpose, their passion, and put their purpose over their preference.
I don't know if it's a branding issue, though. It's allowing them to campaign on those Conservative issues that they were kind of torn about being outspoken on because they needed to appeal to those inner city voters.
But it's another way of them having, riding one horse and leading another. They're just.
Joe, before we go, I want to ask you about the NDIS. Bill Shorten today has called on the states to step up disability support. He's also flagged that the way the NDIS is operating, it can't go on forever, and there might need to be a section of people who turn to other areas for support rather than the NDIS. The states are hardly going to want to contribute more to disability cases, though.
Well, I suppose before the NDIS came along, the states were doing most of the heavy lifting. I'm actually coming to you now from my best mate's house. It's the most wheelchair-friendly house that you'll ever see in your life. He's a quadriplegic, and he also works in disability services, and he knows all this stuff inside and out. And yes, it is true that the states used to do a lot of this stuff, and when the NDIS came along, they all just went, okay, that's it. We don't have to do anything anymore. Now, this could be anything from the provision of wheelchair taxis that can accommodate wheelchairs that have been absolutely decimated by the rise of Uber. It could be things like information sharing. He just got a questionnaire sent to him from the NDIS asking him if he was receiving anything from any other insurance schemes, like, for example, in Victoria, the Transport Accident Commission. Now, if the NDIS doesn't know this, that is a massive problem. In his previous job, he used to get all the data from births, deaths and marriages to make sure they weren't handing out payments to dead people,
God.
Quite frankly. So there is a huge amount of just a lack of knowledge, a lack of staff with expertise in this area who actually know what people need, and providers, of course, saying, hey, we're going to throw all this stuff at you, and then just bill it all to the NDIS.
Okay. A lot for Bill Shorten to sort out there. Jo, Hildebrand, Gemma Tognini, thank you very much for joining me once again.
Thank you, Sharon. All the best with your bub. We miss you. We'll see you when you get back.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.